Andrew Malkinson could have walked
Greater
out of
Manchester
prison
Police
after 6.5
are
years.
liars.
All
Let
he
us
had
both
to
down.
do was say 2 words, "I'm
Thank you.
guilty." He refused. That decision cost him an extra decade of his life. This is the story of a man who chose prison over a lie and the system that punished him for it. The woman who accused him wasn't lying. She genuinely believed it was him. She was certain. She told that to the jury. What she didn't tell the jury, because the police told her not to worry about it, was that in the middle of the trial, she pulled an officer aside and said, "I'm not sure I have the right man." They told her it was just nerves. Andrew Malkinson got life. In 2009, prosecutors in England had DNA evidence that proved Andrew Malkinson was innocent. They looked at it, and they buried it. Andrew Malkinson spent 17 years in prison for a rape he did not commit. He was convicted on eyewitness identification alone. No DNA, no forensic evidence linking him to the crime. Not a single piece of physical evidence. And yet, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. He could have been released early if he had admitted guilt. He refused because he was innocent. That stubbornness, that refusal to lie, cost him an extra decade behind bars. When he was finally exonerated in 2023, 20 years after his arrest, he had no home, no savings, and no compensation. He was living in a tent in Spain. And the people responsible? The police who withheld evidence, the prosecutors who knew, the review body that turned him down twice, even after seeing the DNA. Almost none of them have faced any consequences. To understand what happened to Andrew Malkinson, you first need to understand what happened to the woman he was accused of attacking. In the early hours of July 19, 2003, a woman in her 30s was walking home alone through Little Holton in Salford, Greater Manchester. She was a mother of young children. It was the height of summer. Someone followed her. He tracked her movements, chose his moment, and seized her near a motorway embankment on Clegg's Lane. He dragged her down the bank into a secluded, obscure location. Somewhere with prior knowledge of the area would know. What followed was, in the words of the prosecution at a later trial, a prolonged assault of the gravest kind. She was strangled until she lost consciousness. She was beaten so severely that her cheekbone was fractured, one eye swollen shut. She was raped twice. When she regained consciousness, she staggered to the road. A dog walker found her just after 5:30 in the morning, still in great distress. He called for help immediately. She survived, and from the moment she was found, she cooperated fully with police, describing her attacker, agreeing to identification procedures, and eventually sitting in a courtroom and pointing to the man she believed had destroyed her life. She was telling the truth as she understood it. The tragedy of this case, the truly devastating heart of it, is that she was wrong. She identified the wrong man. So did 2 witnesses who claimed they saw someone following her that night. All 3 identifications were, in the words of prosecutors more than 20 years later, honestly and genuinely made, but mistaken. The man they identified was Andrew Malkinson. Andrew Malkinson was 37 years old in 2003. He was working as a security guard. He was living with a friend in a flat in Little Holton, about 1.5 miles from where the attack took place. He had no previous convictions for violence. Nothing in his background suggested he was capable of this kind of crime. A few weeks before the attack, 2 police officers had stopped him in the area. They thought he fit the description circulating after the crime. They visited him at work. He was heavily tattooed on both arms. The victim had not mentioned tattoos. He was also 3 inches taller than the attacker she described. And when police first visited him, hours after the attack, he had no scratch on his face, despite the victim saying she had scratched her attacker deeply enough to draw blood. None of this prevented his arrest. Shortly before his arrest, Malkinson had quit his job and left the area, telling a friend he was traveling to Holland. He was actually at a Salvation Army hostel in Grimsby. Police tracked him there and arrested him on the 2nd of August, 2003. His sudden departure, they said, added to their suspicion. What they did not know, or chose not to pursue, was that Malkinson had left because he was having personal problems where he had been living, not because he was running from anything. At his trial in February 2004, the prosecution had no DNA evidence, no forensic evidence of any kind linking him to the scene. Their entire case rested on the identification evidence of 3 witnesses, the victim and 2 passers-by named Beverly Craig and Michael Seward. What the defense did not know, because it was never disclosed to them, was that Craig and Seward had between them amassed convictions for 26 offenses of dishonesty and fraud. Their credibility as witnesses should have been challenged. It never was. Andrew Malkinson was found guilty by a majority verdict of 10 to 2. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. Andrew Malkinson entered prison in 2004 maintaining his innocence. He would do so for every single year of the 17 that followed. That innocence came at a cost. Prisoners who refuse to admit guilt are denied parole. Malkinson was eligible for release after 6.5 years. He refused to confess to something he didn't do. He stayed. To survive prison, he turned to education. He taught himself mathematics, physics, and astronomy, subjects with fixed knowable truths, things that could not be manipulated or misrepresented. He described liberating his mind when his body could not be free. In 2006, 2 years after his conviction, Malkinson appealed. The Court of Appeal dismissed it. Then, in 2007, something happened that should have changed everything. A forensic review called Operation Cube was retesting DNA samples from hundreds of old cases using newer, more advanced techniques. When they reached Malkinson's case, they found something remarkable: a DNA profile on samples taken from the victim, a profile that did not belong to Andrew Malkinson. It belonged to an unknown man. By December 2009, the Crown Prosecution Service knew about this DNA, they were told. They advised against further examination. That same year, Malkinson applied to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, the body set up specifically to investigate potential miscarriages of justice. They declined to review his case, citing cost-benefit grounds. Cost-benefit. A man was rotting in prison for a crime the evidence said he didn't commit, and the decision was made on cost-benefit grounds. He applied again in 2018, rejected again. In 2016, while Malkinson was still in prison, Greater Manchester Police destroyed the victim's clothing, evidence that had a legal duty to be preserved for at least 30 years. It was gone. In 2020, after 16 years, the parole board finally released him, not exonerated, just released on license. He was still a convicted rapist in the eyes of the law. He still had to report to probation. He still carried the conviction that had taken everything from him. He was released into a world he no longer knew. He had no home. He moved to Spain and lived in a tent. In 2014, a legal charity called Appeal took on Malkinson's case. They did what the state had refused to do. They investigated. They commissioned their own forensic DNA testing, and what they found was more damning than even Malkinson had known. The unknown male DNA from 2007, still there, and now appeal found additional DNA on the victim's ligature and on her clothing, all pointing to the same unknown man, all pointing away from Andrew Malkinson. In 2021, Malkinson applied to the Criminal Cases Review Commission for a third time, and here is perhaps the most chilling detail of this entire case. Internal documents later revealed that in 2022, even after appeal presented their compelling DNA findings, the CCRC was internally considering rejecting Malkinson's case for a third time. They did not reject it, but the fact that they considered it, even at that stage, tells you everything about how this institution functioned. In October 2022, a check against the police DNA database finally produced a match. The unknown DNA profile, labeled Unknown Male 1 since 2007, was identified. The man whose DNA was all over the evidence was a local man named Paul Quinn. Quinn had lived in Little Halton in 2003. Quinn's DNA had been on the national database since 2012, 10 years earlier, a decade during which Andrew Malkinson sat in prison. In January 2023, the CCRC finally referred Malkinson's case to the Court of Appeal. On July 26, 2023, 20 years after his arrest, the Court of Appeal quashed Andrew Malkinson's conviction. He stood outside the court and spoke to the press. He had spent 2 decades telling the truth. The truth had finally won. He was 57 years old, his 30s, his 40s, and most of his 50s gone. What happened after Malkinson's exoneration was a cascade of institutional accountability, or rather, the desperate attempt to avoid it. The CCRC's chairwoman, Helen Pitcher, initially refused to apologize. An independent review by KC Chris Henley delivered severe criticism of the body. He found that the CCRC should have referred Malkinson's case to the Court of Appeal as far back as 2009. He described the CCRC's public statements after the exoneration as attempting to take too much credit and too little responsibility. Over 160,000 people signed a petition demanding Pitcher's resignation. She still refused to apologize until April 2024, after she had already read Henley's damning report. In January 2025, Helen Pitcher resigned before she could be sacked. Then came the question of money. Under existing rules, wrongfully convicted prisoners had compensation deducted to cover the cost of their prison accommodation, their food, their bed. Andrew Malkinson, having been caged for 17 years for something he didn't do, faced having money taken from his compensation to pay for the privilege of that imprisonment. The public outcry was immediate. The government scrapped the rule. In February 2025, Malkinson finally received a compensation payment from the Ministry of Justice, 19 months after his exoneration, after living on universal credit. An official public inquiry into the miscarriage of justice began in October 2023, led by Judge Sarah Monroe, KC. It is still ongoing. The Independent Office for Police Conduct opened a criminal investigation into whether officers adhered to proper protocols, and Paul Quinn, the man whose DNA was at the scene, who had been living freely in Exeter, Devon, was arrested. He has denied any involvement and has pleaded not guilty. His trial began at Manchester Crown Court in March 2026. That trial is happening right now as this video goes out.
Andrew Malkinson is 60 years old. He is rebuilding his life. He has spoken publicly about wanting to travel, about seeing the world that was taken from him. In December 2023, he was invited to guest edit BBC Radio 4's Today program. He used the platform not to speak about himself, but to explore the wider impact of wrongful convictions on individuals and families. He spoke about how he survived by studying, by thinking, by refusing to accept that the walls around him defined what he could know or who he could become. He has called for the Criminal Cases Review Commission to be completely rebuilt. He has called for an end to majority jury verdicts, the 10-2 verdict that convicted him in 2004. He has pushed for compensation cap for wrongfully convicted prisoners to be abolished entirely, calling the current system an assault on innocent people. This case is not over. The inquiry is ongoing. The trial of the man accused of the original crime is happening now. Malkinson himself continues to campaign. And somewhere in Britain tonight, there are other Andrew Malkinsons, people sitting in cells maintaining their innocence, cases the CCRC has declined to review, evidence that hasn't been tested, lives that are being consumed by a system that decided the cost wasn't worth it. That is what this case is really about. If this video made you angry, good, use it. The Andrew Malkinson inquiry is still taking place. Appeal, the charity that freed him, is still fighting for others in his position. Links to both are in the description below. If you want to support the work being done to fight wrongful convictions in the UK, Appeal's website is appeal.org.uk. They're a small charity that punches far above its weight. And if you know of a wrongful conviction case that deserves more attention, let me know in the comments. This channel exists to cover exactly these stories. Thank you for watching The Red Case File. I'll see you in the next one.